just a little thing that you do is service for God. There was a pediatric, he was a doctor, pediatric doctor, and he had a little girl. And he told this story. And a little girl's name was Sarah. And Sarah was in his wife's Sunday school class. True story. But Sarah came to church and Sunday school faithfully, and one Sunday his wife taught on the importance of serving. And what an honor it was to serve, because when we serve and help other people, we're really serving Christ. So after Sunday school, Sarah came up to the Sunday school teacher and asked her, "What can I do to serve Christ? What can I do to help someone else?" She really wasn't expecting to be asked that quick. But she looked around. She was in the basement of the church, and she saw an empty vase. And she said, "I'll tell you what you can do. You can go out and pick a flower and put it in that vase. You can do that every week." And the little girl thought, "Well, that's not very important." And she's like, "Oh, yes, it is. If you're doing that for someone else and for God, it is very important." So the little girl said, "Okay." So she goes out, she gets a flower and brings it back and puts it in that vase. Every Sunday, she did that as her service for Christ. The Sunday school teacher told the pastor about it. He was so moved by it that he went to the basement and got that vase and put it right beside of the podium where he was preaching. And that Sunday, he talked about the importance of serving Christ and serving others, and what an honor it was, and talked about little Sarah and her flowers. And everyone was moved, of course. Not long after that, Sarah's parents called the doctor and told her that she wasn't doing too well, and not eating very well and all that. And so he said, "Well, we'll get her in and do some tests." And they did an array of tests with Sarah. And he sat there one day after he got the test results back in his office, just wondering how he was going to tell the parents that Sarah had leukemia. And he decided to go to their house and tell them in person. And he goes and he tells them the news. And it was a bad kind of leukemia, and it was also with her body and genetics. It was life, terminal. And so Sarah continued to bring the flower every Sunday, but she continued to get sicker and sicker until eventually she got so sick, the parents called the doctor and said, "You need to come right away." He comes to the house and finds her laying there very, very weak and dying. And he says to the parents, "There's nothing more that we can do. Just enjoy your time with her and just make the best of it." He said that next Sunday was a lonely Sunday as he sat there, because Sarah always sat in the church and always brought the flower. And as he sat there, he said he tried to get through the service, but he kept thinking about Sarah. And he said the pastor done his message and preached his sermon, and at the end of the sermon, the pastor's eyes got really big, and he looked in the back of the church, and there he saw the family, Sarah's family, holding her in a little blanket, and in her hand is a little flower. She gets down, and in her weak body, with what strength she has left, she walks to the front of the church. And she just drops that flower in the vase. But this time she puts a piece of paper beside of it and walks back. 4 days later, Sarah passed away. And after the funeral, the pastor went up to Dave, this pediatrician, and said, "Dave, I want you to see this. I think you might want to keep this." And it was a letter. It was just a little note from Sarah. And it said, "Dear God, this vase was the greatest honor of my life." I think of that story and I realize that it doesn't have to be anything grand or great. If we're doing it for God, if we're doing it for the right reason, if it's just a cup of water, or if we're just putting the flowers in, whatever it is, if we're doing it for the right reason, it matters to God. Someday, Jesus will stand before us and he'll say, "Welcome. Thank you." And we'll look at him and we'll say, "It wasn't much." He'll say, what you did for the least of these, you did for me. And that's what we need to understand, that everything that we're doing for someone else, if we do it with the right attitude and the right heart, we're doing it for God.